Should we have a chat around these three field management programs that we've got? Obviously, we've got the three programs: the Field Visit Foundations, the Improving Franchisee Performance, and the Franchisee Business Planning. And all of those are for field managers, aimed at getting the most out of field visits. So, I guess starting with that Field Visit Foundations program, we've got an agenda that covers field visits in context, the many roles of a field manager, the franchisor-franchisee relationship life cycle, the stages of the field visit process, do's and don'ts of field visits, franchisor infrastructure, including the field manager's toolbox, and a lot of case studies and examples that we have throughout the day. I guess from your point of view, what do you think that is one of the most important areas that we cover during that day?
I think that it's all relevant depending on, whereabouts the attendees are in their business cycle. But I think by far the most important aspect of it is the case studies and trying to work through the different scenarios of each one that we present to the attendees is really beneficial in their learning, and it cements what they've already known, but it often gives them new ways of looking at things that they hadn't considered before. And it's definitely that interaction with the other attendees and that brainstorming that gives them those nuggets of gold that they can take back to their organisations.
And do you mean that that case study of that franchise bakery business that we've got, Michelle, that you and I fictitiously own, that's not doing so well?
Well, I think anything that anyone can help us with would be great.
Yeah, fantastic. So I think for me that this Field Visit Foundations course, it's really getting a lot of the basics in place. And as you'd often say, field managers are often doing many of these things, but it's understanding what all the different parts are and how they can fit together that often brings a realization of where the emphasis needs to be, or perhaps some important little missing bits that can be quite impactful later on.
And definitely the anecdotal stories and sharing of experiences is really valuable for all of the attendees, for sure.
Yeah, I think from my point of view too, I mean, we've been running these for years now, and it's always amazing how there are always nuggets that come out of every single session. There's always a unique perspective and a unique way of doing things that makes it really interesting for all of us.
Absolutely. Like even the last session that we had, somebody that was relatively new to franchising came up with one of the best ideas I've heard in years. And it's always those stories and those experiences that people share that is where you get the real benefit of the course, I think.
Yeah, well done. So one of the areas that we go through too is just talking about, for instance, the iceberg of field visit effectiveness. And I guess that's recognising that there's a lot more to effective field visits than just the person that's arriving with their attendant skills and attributes. There's a lot that sits beneath the surface that you like in terms of their knowledge about the role and franchising, and then that core franchising infrastructure that sits beneath that in terms of tools and processes and things. And that's really, I guess, what we're covering then throughout the day. Anything in there from your point of view that you find interesting?
Yeah, I think the training of the the field service representatives is crucial in how effective it is. And going through those steps, like you say, you've got the iceberg, which is the top of the iceberg, the person that you see, but underneath there's all those processes and value that comes with being in a franchise network. And it's making sure that the field service representative understands what all those components are and how valuable they are to the franchisees that they're supporting.
Yep, awesome. And we also, of course, spend some time going through the different roles and hats that a field manager wears and sort of what needs to sit behind that. That can be a little bit overwhelming sometimes for some of the attendees, recognising perhaps the breadth of the role.
Yeah, I think so. And I think just kind of delineating what those different roles are and how they all fit together. I think the biggest misconception or misunderstanding is the difference between being a coach and being a trainer. And so much of the coaching side of it is just that mentoring and supporting the franchisees and giving them the confidence to be able to do the job. And I think that's one of the things that is really highlighted in the training, that there's so many different facets of it.
Awesome. And we go through the relationship life cycle, and we talk about really how to be effective at each stage. There is always a lot of interesting stories there, particularly around, of course, our know-it-all franchisee, and the challenges. Certainly everyone's got a story, and everyone's got a franchisee in that difficult phase.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing, that they can identify someone in their own network that fits really well within each of those boxes or each of those categories. And again, the epiphany kind of comes when they realise that even though those other attendees have different networks and different structures, the experiences and the challenges that they're having with these franchisees are actually pretty similar. So yeah, I think that going through that life cycle and seeing that there's an end in sight and where you want to get to with your franchisees and develop them is really crucial.
What I really like to have to say is when we go back and say, well, actually, how can we set franchisees up to better kind of mitigate the depth of dissatisfaction that a franchisee can naturally go through. We're talking about that setup, just some of the different ideas that come out there, or the different practices some companies do to try and to really sort of mitigate and sort of improve the pathway through to that more interdependent, I should say, phase. Our wise one stage at the end, if you like.
Yeah, and I think sometimes franchising gets a bit of a bad rep, but it's always really, I enjoy that part of it, because it's really good to see how much people are focused on their franchisees and that it's such a collaborative effort to support them. And I think that's the thing that really shines through, is that they're just looking at ways how they can best support their franchisees, in the business, and understanding the three stages of the life cycle is a really important part of it.
Yeah, well done. And I guess that then takes us on to the field visit process itself, which I must admit, I never tire of hearing you work through that, the steps and stages, really breaking it down into the constituent parts, but also recognizing that, it's not just a linear process, it's actually a circle.
Well, thank you for that. Yeah, I think so too. The process, I think everyone kind of thinks of it, like you said, as a linear process. But once you've understood that it's a cycle, and there's just a couple of little tricks along the way, like having an agenda, the same agenda each time, where franchisees can add things to, makes a huge difference as well. So it's just those, little bits of information that we can hopefully give to the field service representatives that make their life a bit easier.
Awesome. And of course, one of the things that we're emphasising a lot there is that planning and preparation side for setting up the visit. And it's always interesting, I think, at the end too, and after the fact, how attendees often refer back to the importance of that agreed action plan and the final written report, and really helping to bring home the effectiveness of the visits.
Well, that's it. And, like when we start this and we ask them anecdotally how many of them do that follow-up process, the written report and everything is great, but that's kind of where it's left in most cases. And so it's not until you work through the benefits of doing the follow-up and how crucial it is to starting the process all over again with that planning and preparation, that they realise how pivotal it is and how all the components really fit together in that cycle.
Well done. And obviously there's a lot more that we go through in the day, some of the, the do's and don'ts and the different tools that a field manager may use as part of the life cycle. What do you find most interesting from your point of view? And and what do you think sort of attendees, I guess, find most beneficial at the end?
I think for me, one of the most interesting things is, the attendees come knowing a lot of the bits, a lot of the pieces of the puzzle, but sometimes they just can't put it together, or they've been so busy that they haven't had the opportunity to understand what those bits are. So throughout the course, it's really good to watch them put all of those bits together, and it makes sense. And just the confidence that they grow by the end of, at the end of the training, you can just see their confidence is growing, and that all the little bits put together make a really good jigsaw, and they can see all the pieces of the puzzle.
Yeah, and I'd say the same too. I mean, often people want to know what best practice is, and the foundations of an effective visit, which is what the session is all about. They may know a number of parts, but there are always other angles that they weren't aware of, and perhaps the emphasis on the importance of some elements that people can really take away seems to be one of the big takeaways. And from my point of view, it's always just so fascinating seeing the different businesses in practice, what they're doing, but also the unique perspectives that individuals bring, including the strengths, of the backgrounds that they may have, which may be varied, involving franchising or not, but are all additive to the role. So it's always very stimulating, isn't it?
Exactly, and you can see those different approaches when when we do the workshops, and just the different lenses that people have, the different attribute or different bits that they take out of the information that we provide to them, and just the interaction that they have with each other about how to support the franchisee, you and I, in the best way possible.
Yeah. Well, we need a lot of help, so it's great that they can do that.
We do. Our business is heading down the toilet really quickly.
Well, which will take us on to our next one. Anyway, so yeah, obviously we look forward to seeing people on the Field Visit Foundations program.